Welcome to Good News Conversations. I'm your host, Gino Gutierrez. This show is presented by the Jewish Community Center of Greater Albuquerque. If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe, and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Be sure to see the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Good News Conversations here on the Albuquerque Journal Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gino Gutierrez, and this episode is sponsored by the Jewish Community Center of Greater Albuquerque. On this week's episode, I welcome Albuquerque Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Gabriella Blakey to sit down with me and talk about her vision for the district and where she sees APS going under her leadership. Please enjoy this episode.
Looking for a place where everyone in your family can thrive? The Jewish Community Center of Greater Albuquerque is your local hub for wellness, learning, and connection. Whether it's our state-of-the-art fitness center, early childhood programs, or vibrant cultural events, there's something for everyone. Everyone is welcome at the JCC. Join us and be part of a diverse community that supports your whole family's growth and happiness. Visit jccabq.org to learn more.
I'm now joined by Albuquerque Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Gabriella Blakey. Superintendent, thank you so much for joining me.
Sure, thank you for having me.
And we've done a lot of coverage on APS since you took the superintendent job a little over a year ago. But I want to kind of start with your background, Superintendent. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and kind of what you were doing before you took on this role?
Sure. So I've actually been in the role only a few months. It's been about 5 months. I started July 1st. And prior to that, I was the Chief Operations Officer for Albuquerque Public Schools. But my experience with Albuquerque Public Schools goes much further back. I was actually a student. I grew up here in Albuquerque. I went to Sandia Bay's Van Buren, and I graduated from Highland High School. And so Albuquerque is obviously a very special place to me, Albuquerque Public Schools particularly. But as I was growing up, and especially in my adult life, I saw that the outcomes for me were different than they were for my friends and the colleagues that I had gone to school with at Van Buren and Highland. And so I really got invested in education as how we can change outcomes for society and for the other people around us that we need to care for. And so I got into education. I graduated from New Mexico State and went off to Seattle, actually, to go teach because I thought that the grass was greener in Seattle, which it is, but I really missed Albuquerque. And I missed really giving back to my community. So I came back to Albuquerque to teach at Highland. And so that was kind of like where my commitment came back to the kids of Albuquerque, and particularly how I had grown up and really wanting to make an impact. So I've always been kind of interested in how I could make a greater impact on the policies and practices that are impacting our students. And so being in this role is really important to me because at a larger scale, I'm able to really impact and change things for the way that we've been serving our children in Albuquerque.
Yeah, and we've had some prior conversations and some stories we've covered. I mean, when Ventana Ranch got their blue ribbon status, when UNM faculty shadowed some APS staff a couple months ago. But I'm kind of curious, you mentioned you've been in the role a couple months. How has it been adapting to this new role? I mean, you mentioned previous experience at APS, but now kind of you're the big boss. So what's that experience been like?
Yeah, it's much different. You know, you can have experience in the district, but really being able to be in a place where you can impact the policies and practices that are impacting our students and our staff is a really great place to be, actually. And so over the past few months, I've really done a lot of work in listening to the community, listening to our staff, listening to the students, to make sure that my vantage point as far as being in the district and other roles is really connected to what is needed right now. And so we've had a lot of, people come in and look at the district because I think it's really important to get an outside perspective and then how we can really influence and change the practices that we're doing that will meet us a place where we can meet the goals for our students.
And one of the times we spoke, Superintendent, was when Ventana Ranch got their blue ribbon status, one of the highest national honors a school can receive. I'm curious if you can just talk a little bit about, the ceremony they had that day. I know all the students were outside kind of celebrating with some cheerleaders from Volcano Vista, but just, what it meant to you to be a part of a celebration that really highlighted the hard work of students and staff at a school here at APS.
Yeah, that's one of the highlights probably of my last 5 months. Certainly there's other celebrations we've had, but that, national recognition, sometimes we don't realize the great things we're doing in our own backyard. We're very critical of ourselves. And I always worry that our students hear that and they don't hear the positive things that then build up their self-esteem to be able to really make change in their own lives. And so at that event particularly, it was great to see how students were so proud of themselves. They were proud of their teachers. They were proud of their school. They were proud to be a part of this community. And so I really want to build on that across the district because we have this pocket of successes that we don't use as that is us. That's what defines us. And I really want our kids to start seeing that success and knowing that they walk into their schools with pride and that the staff is working so hard to make sure that they're serving their students.
Yeah, because I would imagine that's probably one of the biggest challenges you're facing. I know growing up here, I went through the APS system through elementary, middle, and high school. But you do often hear a lot about, New Mexico's last place in education. You seem to hear a lot about the challenges, the issues that we face as a state. But from your standpoint, I remember when we spoke, you talked about how, Ventana Ranch could be an example for the great work the district is doing and students and staff are doing. How do you help overcome that kind of stigma that the state seems to be facing? Yeah,
I think, as adults, we have to look at where we can do better. But for our kids, we really have to make sure that they hear us talking with pride about them, about their school, about their education, because I really believe it impacts our students to a self-fulfilling prophecy that they hear. I know how I felt when I would hear people talking about my school growing up in a negative way or my neighborhood, growing up, that people are talking about it in a very bad way and how it impacts our children. And so I really want to make sure that we talk about the positive things and our students see their success instead of seeing my school is 50th or the state is 50th. And I really want them to see the positive because I think if we can build on that, we have a lot of things that are also in first place, that we don't build upon that. And so I want to make sure that we're in a place where we can build on the successes. Just a month ago, we had an international conference that's held here in New Mexico. It's called La Cosecha, and it's a dual language conference that's held here. And we had people from all over the world visiting our schools. And they go back to their districts and they talk about what they've learned from us. And I think we forget that sometimes of the promising practices that we have here that other people also take away.
Yeah, because I know Kevin Ospel, my colleague who covers education for the Journal, I know he covered in October, there was a delegation from Alaska and Hawaii that came down to tour community school. So the district is doing things, to your point, Superintendent, that are kind of leading the way and an example for other states as well, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we just need to celebrate those and build upon it rather than those being outliers. But that is the foundation of our work. When we look at the community school partnership that you're talking about and having these partners from Alaska and Hawaii coming here, and then we have people, community schools, dual language. These are programs that people are looking at us as examples. And I think we have to continue to build and celebrate and not beat ourselves down. It's okay to be good at things. And I think sometimes we're worried to say that there are things that we really are in first place with. And we need to build upon those instead of making those the outliers.
And I want to touch upon something you mentioned a little earlier about adults, partnerships that the district is doing. We've covered a bit of stories about, certain partnerships that the district has or, that entities have with schools. One of them was a UNM faculty from the College of Education came to shadow with APS staff. Even you yourself went out with Christopher Goodrich, who's the dean of the College of Education, to go visit, I believe it was James Monroe and Tony Hillerman middle schools. Can you tell me a little bit about, what those partnerships mean to the district and how vital they are?
Sure. It's very timely because this morning in my email, I am a graduate from the College of Education at UNM for my master's and my doctorate degrees, and so I get their newsletter. And so just this morning, the newsletter was highlighting this Lobo at APS Day, and so it was a great reminder of the partnership that we have in the community. That was a really great event for APS and UNM to partner together with the College of Education. And they shadowed, teachers, counselors, myself, principals, to see if we are connecting to what's being taught in the university to what's happening in practice. And it was a great collaboration where we saw that we always have more in common than we have different, and really being able to build upon that and celebrate. And as I always go back to how the kids take that perspective away. And so as we're walking around schools and kids are like, who are these people, or why are you here? And, oh, it's UNM. And then they see the connection to college and to the university right here. And then they have this sense of pride, like, oh, that's the Lobos. You could tell that everything we do impacts our students. And so that was, really intended for adults to connect, but everything we do, you can see infiltrates into our students.
And I'm curious to get your perspective a little bit. Over the summer, I followed a group of students from Jimmy Carter Middle School that were part of the Governor's 2024 Summer Challenge. And what was unique about this program is they were partnered with the New Mexico National Guard. And they really focused on, reading proficiencies, but also kind of getting those kids out of their comfort zones as well. And when I spoke to the people associated with the programs, they saw massive leaps in the students' reading proficiency scores, but also a lot of self-confidence as well that has grown. Yeah, I'm curious, Superintendent, there's a lot of impact that can be done within schools, but for these programs like that Summer Challenge, or you take ABQ reads with their tutors, for example, as well, how important is community to student success? We
couldn't do anything without community. And so to me, I view the education of our kids in Albuquerque as a community effort. And one of the best things about my role in the past 5 months is seeing how the community wants to partner with us. And I have never felt since July 1st, stepping into this role, that we're in this alone. We have a very strong community that really wants to help in the outcomes of education for our students. And so I think that that's a great thing to celebrate. So anything we do that really helps in us achieving our goals that we have for our students, that the community can partner with, is always something that I embrace and open our arms up to. Particularly looking at the Summer Challenge, our goal 4 is really looking at our students and perseverance and self-efficacy. And then we have our goals of reading and math. And so being able to have these community partners that are really connected to how we can achieve our goals is something that we're very interested in and always willing to think about how we can do things differently.
Yeah, and this next question comes from Kevin Ospel, my colleague. He sent these over. He said, during an assembly at Highland High School at the beginning of the school year, you said, quote, honestly, the status quo is no longer an option. And we're just curious, how important was it for you right off the bat to set a tone for, what you wanted your school year to look like as APS's new superintendent?
I think it's really important because, like I said, even though I have worked in the district, I've worked in the district because I want to push on the system to do better and to do things differently. And so I think it's really important that people know who I am as a leader. The people that have worked closest with me as teachers when I was a principal, within the district as principals, when I was a principal supervisor, or when I was in operations, they know that I want to think about how we can do things differently. And I'm not here to protect the district or continue to do things the way that we've done in the past. But I think it's really important that as a leader, the whole institution knows where I stand on that, not just the people that have worked closest with me. And so that is really important to me, that we look at how we can do things differently. And I think as people work more and more with me over the past few months, they've heard me before saying, if somebody comes in and says, well, what we've done in the past works like this, and that's usually, I think everybody knows by now, don't start your sentence if you go into her office with that, because that's not going to work. Because I do, I really like to do things differently, and I think that's what we need to do to continue to keep up with changes, not only in society, but to achieve the goals that we have outlined for our students.
I know this one might be a tough one to nail down, but has there been a moment or a highlight that has stuck out in your first few months as superintendent that kind of has stuck with you?
Really, anytime I go to schools, it really sticks with me because you get to see the connection to the students. And actually, the thing that sticks out the most, which is kind of a funny story, but like I said, I went to Van Buren, and it's really important to me that the kids at Van Buren see that they can achieve anything and that they are strong individuals. And so when I went to go visit Van Buren, the principal had found like my yearbook picture, which was really embarrassing. And he made a big sign that said like welcome. And then it had like lots of little Gabriellas around from 6th grade. But why that sticks out to me is because it was kind of like humbling to see, like, as a 6th grader walking through the school, like what I have done in my life and the lessons I've learned because of my experiences and my teachers and my friends from Van Buren and Highland. Like, it kind of grounded me with why this work is so important and how I hope I can be an inspiration to other girls that are in school today, you know, in 6th grade, struggling with like what they're going to do or how hard school is. And so that was kind of why that was like, it was funny, which always is like a great way to get to me. But then it also was really humbling to know that I was very similar to the students at the school.
And I know it's always hard to kind of crystal ball these types of things, but where do you see the district going in the next, couple of years? Where do you hope to see it go?
I really hope to see that, we're really setting a foundation right now. And just like with any large institution of change, that we have like a slow creep and then we really like accelerate. And so I really hope that right now this year we're establishing like very clear goals, that we're really specific about what we're working on. And then I really hope to see that we're celebrating the successes and we really see changes in the outcomes for our students. And most importantly, I really want to see that kids are graduating being a proud product of Albuquerque Public Schools, like that they have a sense of pride, and that when employers see their diploma and see that they were a graduate of Albuquerque Public Schools, that it comes with meaning, knowing that I know that this student comes to us with these skills, the habits and the mindsets that Albuquerque Public Schools brings, and that just comes across even in a resume. That's what I really want to make sure that we deliver on.
And last question for you, Superintendent, and you touched on it a little bit, but for any of our listeners that may be attending an APS school, they were graduates of APS schools, we now have a superintendent that was a product of Albuquerque Public Schools. What do you hope they see and they glean from your experience for their own and kind of, where they could go in life?
I really hope that they see that as, the potential that we all have in front of us as graduates of Albuquerque Public Schools. I really, that's why I take this role so seriously, that I am a role model to the others, all of our students, and specifically the girls in school, and that we as New Mexicans and as graduates from Albuquerque Public Schools, that we have all the qualities that we need to be successful, just like anybody else around the country. And so I hope to really inspire people to know that about themselves.
Fantastic. Albuquerque Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Gabriella Blakey. Superintendent, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.